Hi, hello, my name is Professor Robert Geyer. I'm the head of the Department of Politics, Philosophy and Religion at Lancaster University. And on the 29th of November 2011, we hosted a Lancaster University Question Time event. It was funded by the Lancaster University Alumni Association, and it was based on the esteemed BBC Question Time programming. The theme of the event was debating politics and faith, and what you're about to see is the 15 minutes highlight clips of that event. If you want to see the entire event, please refer to our website, which will be on this clip. And if you have any further comments or questions, please get in touch with us at the department via the website. Thanks, and enjoy.
Welcome to Lancaster University Question Time. So, the first question that you have asked is, things have got worse for this generation of students. They have worse job prospects and they have to pay more to be here. Who is to blame? And I'm going to start, of course, with Liam on that.
We've now got an education system that is in no less in chaos. Now, that's not actually all to do with fees, that's to do with a lot of the structural changes that are being talked about at the moment. Within the college sector, we've had EMA taken away from 16 to 19-year-olds. I actually think that that is a far worse crime than anything to do with trebling tuition fees, in terms of both the people it helped and the lifeline it represented. Employment, well, we've seen over 1 million young people now unemployed, 1 in 5 graduates unemployed. I mean, this is all building up to a very bleak scenario for this generation. In terms of who's to blame, well, it would be far too simple to say on the specific issue of tuition fees trebling that is simply this government. Actually, it's been a number of changes by successive colour of governments that have led to 3 policy maxims in my view. 1, that the idea of the market will increase quality in higher education. 2, that we should have more students. I agree with that premise. And 3, that the public subsidy should decrease. I actually disagree with that sentiment. That has all led to this system of trebling tuition fees that aren't actually real debt but will be perceived as real debt by those from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. And I think we actually need a fundamental rethink. I guess my plea is that we have until the next general election to rethink where education is going.
I'd like to go back to the question, who is to blame? It seems to me, I gave a lecture here a few months ago on the kind of where the universities were going. And I went back and looked at the 1944 Education Act and what preceded it and what succeeded it. It's very interesting that up until about the 1970s, government reports talked about the importance of learning in itself. After the 1970s, they begin to talk about the importance of education for the sake of the economic health of the nation. My own view is that we don't need 50% of the student age population to be at university. We do need people to be in good education for what they need to do for the rest of their lives. But the main problem, it seems to me, is that the universities are being rapidly converted into centres of continual learning. In fact, my own discussions with people who are responsible for the recent reforms, that's exactly how they've described it. They've talked about the fact that an ageing population needs to be in continual relationship with education. And they've simply grabbed the universities as a convenient vehicle for ensuring that that takes place.
I'm tempted to blame Charles here. For New Labour goes it up to the wealthy, every greedy, perverse kind of individual you could possibly find was friend of New Labour, and the kind of greed culture that was created during their period in office, I think, is to some extent responsible for that. But we can go back further and blame Mrs. Thatcher, because she deregulated the market and made it easier for one person to siphon off the wealth of the society as a whole, which is exactly what they have done. But I don't think it really takes us very far by just accusing or pointing a finger at politicians, because politicians are part of society. And I think as a whole, the blame lies on the society as a whole and on our mode of thought. We seem to think, as Clare pointed out, that more and more is good. The more we consume, the better the economy will be. The faster we are, the better things are. So it's more fast, quick, kind of culture that has been created. So we are constantly running and totally out of breath most of the time. Half the time we do not know, and we seem to be managing in the crisis situation. So it's perpetual crisis management that is going on, which I don't think is going to allow us time to actually come up with some real kind of positive way of looking forward.
Should lecturers go on strike tomorrow as instructed by their union?
The unions are not saying no change in the pension system. It's the details of the negotiation, and then they're and Brendan Barber, you know, the head of the TUC, is no deep radical. Has said the negotiations have not been honest and not been fair, and they'd prefer to get a solution. So I don't think anyone's saying strike for no change at all. That is not the position.
That is right. I think Claire's completely right in saying that. There have been positions that have been put forward, but I don't understand why it has come to strike action in this position. There's a whole set of issues, for example, about the relative merit of final salary pension schemes to average salary pension schemes and how those operate. And what I believe is that there hasn't been sufficient effort, not particularly by Brendan, I agree with Claire about Brendan, but by other trade union leaders to get seriously involved in debate about these questions.
I think that there's a danger of conflating the justice of the argument for defending the pension rights of low-paid workers and the rightness of striking. Now, I understand that some of the unions have got massive strike funds, £70 million, I believe, Unison or Unite had to support the strike. And I can't help wondering whether that money could not be better spent in publicly arguing, making the case, rather than reverting to what I think is inevitably a method of protest that is limited. It inevitably, I think, in the nature of what it does, alienates people who might otherwise be supporting the case for fair and proper pensions. And I wonder whether it's not time for trade unions to think about how they become national leaders and influencers. That can be done, but I fear that there are many trade union leaders who are still stuck in a rut of politics that is not about engagement and not about leadership, but is only about opposing.
Just a minute. I know Dave Prentice. He's the leader of my old union. The overwhelming bulk of the membership is low-paid workers and overwhelmingly women workers. And he has said the drive for this is coming from the membership. The negotiations have gone on for more than a year, not come to any reasonable offer. And what we're talking about is a one-day strike. Come on. We're not talking about closing down the whole country. And they're trying to say to the government, you've got to negotiate seriously, and we're really serious about this, and you're going to damage the future of our lives. And it was balloted on. So talking as though it's the unions have somehow forced this because they've got a big fund is to misrepresent the situation.
I'm not arguing about the unions forcing anybody. I'm simply questioning why it is that unions always rely on withdrawal of labour when in fact they have the capacity.
They don't always rely on it.
Whereas in fact they have the capacity to engage effectively in a whole range of other ways that would actually often be more effective.
I'm going to move on to another question. If you had been the Dean of St Paul's, opening the cathedral doors to find a sea of tents, what would you have done? Charles, can you imagine yourself in this role?
Actually, no. There are many things I've thought I might do in my life, but being a dean is not one of them. Respect them, though I do. I think I would have hoped to get to a situation where the occupation was used for a purpose of real dialogue with the people who live and work in the city. I'm not convinced that has in fact happened in the way that things have gone. I've not been there, so I don't know whether what I'm saying is entirely right. But almost everybody should share the values which have motivated the people to occupy at St Paul's and Wall Street and elsewhere. They are making a statement about the values of society which need to be challenged and changed. The question is whether the political process or whether the form of action that is particularly being taken now is helping that to happen or not. As an observer from a distance, I believe that the people who run the big financial institutions in the city are totally unaffected by this action that's taking place in St Paul's themselves. They see it there, but they're not engaging with it or carrying it forward. carrying forward in a significant debate or discussion about the practices in the city, the issues of regulation, the issues of bonuses, and so on and so forth. And so I think it's a sad action, even though I very much respect the values which have taken people to it, because it's not somehow locking in to a process of change, which, by the way, is in itself exceptionally difficult. Changing society in this way is an exceptionally difficult task, and one which many people, many political parties have tried to do and failed over time. So I think if I'd been Dean of St Paul's and found these tents on the doorstep, I would have said to them, could we set up here in the city, around St Paul's, a set of dialogues between you, who are the occupiers who've come, and the people who work in and around in the tower blocks in the cities. We, the cathedral, will help you to do that.
How important is religion in the Arab Spring, and is it the friend or enemy of democracy? Shuruq, we have to start with you on that one.
The religious fabric of Arab society has been of great importance, if not the most important factor. 2 days ago, we had rain in Cairo during the sit-in. It's something phenomenal because we don't get a lot of rain, maybe once or twice a year, and usually in January. So we had lots of rain come down. It was pouring, and it was about a couple of thousand of us, and we quickly put the blankets and the plastic we had on top of our heads, and we clung together, and we kept moving and chanting slogans like "Down, down with the military council" and so on. But then someone reminded everyone, and he was a Christian, saying that this is the time which both Muslims and Christians believe prayers are answered, because this is a time of giving. Rain is thought of as giving. So everyone, let's pray to God. And everybody was saying very, very loudly and with all the spirit and with all their heart, Ya Rab, which means, oh God, answer our prayers. That's the explanation. And then the rest of whatever we want. And then came in a man who I'd say is an imam, or dressed as an imam, and started using some of the religious formula of prayer, but politically or with political content. And other people joined in. And it was, everybody was, in a sense, in unison, in calling upon the divine to help us change the political system. So the spiritual and the religious, not just 2 days ago, but having observed all the different movements of revolutionary movements in the Arab world, the signs of former religion as well as popular religiosity are very important.
I think religion has played a very, very important part in the Arab Spring. For the first time in recent Arab history, religion consciously took a decision to take a back seat. And that I see as progress. Normally in the Arab world, everything revolves around religion. I mean, it's beginning and end of everything, every discussion, everything. Religion is all. For the first time in the Arab Spring, people said there are other things in life, fighting dictatorship, collaborating with other people.
I totally disagree with Zia on this one, that religion has taken a back seat and that it was about community. There was definitely a tactic, particularly in the Egyptian revolution. Tunisia perhaps is a different case. Egyptian society, with both its Christian and Muslim parts, is deeply religious society, perhaps not always in a political sense, or religion is not always manifest in a political sense amongst ordinary individuals. I think it was a tactic to try to convince the Western world, which thinks of religion as oppositional to democracy, as oppositional to freedom. The tactic in terms of the propaganda for the revolution was to put aside for the time being any discourse that uses religious terms.
So thank you all for making this a very interesting debate, but above all, thank you to a really excellent discussion on the part of our panel members.